Hi, my name's Frankie, and I am with Lauren. She's a counselor here at the Counseling and Wellness Center. And today we're just going to be talking about losing a relationship. This could be a partner or a friendship, and just some common questions people might have about that. So, why can the end of a close relationship or friendship feel just as emotionally painful as other significant losses?
So, when you think about grief and you kind of zoom out a little bit, the actual definition is that grief is the anguish experienced after a significant loss. So, I feel like culturally we often tie the word grief to the experience of death, and that's only what we think about. But in reality, that's totally social, that's totally cultural. It's not really the most accurate description of that emotion. Really, if we focus on the concept of loss, that's not just death, right? We can lose a lot of things. We can better understand then that loss exists in so many different forms. Like you said, the ending of a relationship, the ending of a friendship, changing jobs, moving, different phases of life, all of those are loss in some way. It just might not be the type of grief that we usually think about.
Yeah. So, what are some common emotional reactions that students might experience after a breakup or the end of a meaningful friendship?
So, when we're talking about breakups or friendship drama, I see a lot of confusion, lots of questioning, like, why did this happen? What went wrong? Yearning, usually for like a different outcome, or dwelling on the past. Also, like rumination. So, kind of like reliving that experience, replaying events. And then naturally, a lot of apprehension about the future. And again, if we zoom out, these are all common manifestations of grief as a whole, whether you're experiencing it with like typical like loss of a loved one or loss of a relationship.
Okay. So, what healthy coping skills do you recommend for someone who is struggling to move forward after a relationship or friendship ends?
So I think really the first step is always acknowledging your emotions and just saying that you're not okay. Ignoring it and trying to push through, or just being hard on yourself and acting like I should be better, this shouldn't bother me, belittling yourself and that emotional experience, it's not really helpful. It doesn't help you move forward. So after we kind of work on that, I usually encourage people to reconnect with their own interest and then try to remove pressure for coping to be some sort of elaborate routine. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or like a TikTok self care routine. It can be something really simple and it can even be repetitive day after day. For example, little things like study dates with other friends, phone calls home, having a favorite meal, doing a favorite activity, revisiting a comfort TV show, all of that would count.
So, speaking of TikTok, social media can make healing really difficult. So, what advice do you have for managing social media after a breakup or friendship?
So I really feel like for me, the biggest challenge with social media is comparison. I think we are all guilty of subconsciously comparing our experience to the posts that we see online, which makes us be a lot harder on ourselves. So I think it's important to remember that social media really is a highlight reel. And I know we say that all the time, but honestly, if we think about it in terms of like physical illness, I feel like it makes my point a lot more. So, for example, like we all get sick. We've all had a stomach bug at some point, and that is not fun. It is not glamorous. And 99% chance no one's going to post about that online. But if I'm scrolling through someone's Instagram or their TikTok feed, like I'm not sitting there and thinking, oh, they've never ever been sick in their life. I instinctively know they probably have been, but they just don't share that. So, same thing with breakups, with relationships, with drama within friendships, all of that. They've probably been through it. They're just not going to share that online the same way they would the happy moments. So, you kind of just have to apply that same logic and remember just because they're not sharing every single inside thought, it doesn't mean that they're not going through the same thing. It doesn't mean that you're less than for experiencing that.
So, how can students tell the difference between processing their emotions in a healthy way and becoming stuck in that rumination of self blame?
This is so hard to do in the moment, but really the difference between healthy processing and then that rumination, self blame lies in the trajectory of it. So, healthy processing is often going to be solution oriented. So, you're looking through a situation and you're looking for next steps, you're looking for ways to grow, maybe a path forward, things like that. Rumination is going to be the exact same thing each time. So you're reliving events, you're replaying conversations, and there's not really that reflection piece that allows you to grow or encourage like forward momentum. Rumination and self blame really do go hand in hand, though. So, most of the time, I think if we are honest with ourselves, when we're reliving and replaying moments and conversations, we often spend that time talking down on ourselves and how we should have been better, should have said something different, blah, blah, blah. But again, that's not helpful in the long run. We have to kind of be gentle with ourselves and remind ourselves that we are all living for the first time. So even when relationships don't go the way we want them to, we are still learning from that experience, and that's still valuable.
Hmm. So, what are some ways students can rebuild their confidence or that sense of identity after losing an important relationship?
I think the key part here is that it's helpful to reconnect with yourself after the loss of a relationship. I feel like sometimes when relationships start feeling heavy or we start having a lot of tension, we forget about some of our own individual uniqueness and we just get entirely wrapped up in whatever the event is that is happening. So it can be helpful just to kind of run it back for a minute, revisit your own interests, hobbies, things you're curious about, just stuff that reminds you that you are still a whole person, even if there is this drama happening around you, or even if you're hurting, you are still all of these other things. You're still multifaceted.
Mhm. So, how can someone begin to trust and connect again with others after experiencing a painful relationship or friendship loss?
So, first things first, this is hard and that's normal and natural, and it's nothing to be like upset with yourself over. You're probably going to feel hurt and wary, but the biggest tip that I really have is to remember that no two people are going to be the exact same person. So, it's super unlikely that you will ever experience the exact same situation again. Because I mean, even you've grown and you've changed from whatever happened in that relationship and from that experience. And that's going to impact future relationships as well.
So, what are some signs that someone may benefit from talking with a counselor or therapist instead of trying to cope with the loss on their own?
So, really, if you notice that you're having difficulty maintaining like normal routines, like those core functions like sleeping, class, hygiene, if any of those start to really take a turn, or if you notice that you're kind of preoccupied with thoughts related to the loss to the point that it's getting in the way of your ability to be present in your day to day life, that's when I think it's time to just phone a friend, visit a counselor, call in a little bit of help so you can learn some additional skills and help manage it.
Yeah. So, I know we've covered a lot today. So, if you could share one message with the students who are grieving the loss of a relationship or friendship, what would you want them to know?
Hmm. I guess if I could share one message with any student that's experiencing that relationship loss or friendship loss, it would be that change in relationship or friendship status does not mean that you are any less valuable as a person. Some relationships are truly meant to be in your life for a season, but that doesn't make that relationship any less important or any less valuable for growth. But it may just be time for that relationship to phase out or kind of slow down. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy of a relationship or of that specific connection. It just means that it's time to learn from it and make space for something new.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.